She works 2 jobs just to survive. He owns 5 restaurants but feels emptier than ever. When their worlds collide, neither of them will ever be the same. Before we start, drop a comment and tell us which city you're watching from and rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Nathaniel Crawford stared at the spreadsheet on his laptop screen, but the numbers blurred together like the rain streaking down the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office. Below him, Seattle sprawled in its typical November gray, the Space Needle piercing through low-hanging clouds like a defiant finger pointing at heaven. "You're not listening to me, are you?" Nate looked up to find his business partner and best friend, Marcus Chen, standing in the doorway with 2 steaming cups from the cafe downstairs. The aroma of freshly roasted coffee, that distinct Pacific Northwest scent that was practically Seattle's signature perfume, filled the room. "I heard every word," Nate lied, accepting the cup. "Something about quarterly profits and the new location in Bellevue." Marcus dropped into the leather chair across from him with a heavy sigh. "I said your mother called. Again. She wants to know when you're going to settle down and give her grandchildren." "That's what I pay you for? To relay my mother's interrogations? I'm your CFO, not your secretary. But someone has to tell you that Barbara Crawford is a force of nature, and I, for one, fear her more than the IRS. Despite himself, Nate smiled. His mother was indeed formidable. A former restaurateur herself, she had taught him everything about the business. She had also taught him that success came with sacrifice, which was why, at 32, he owned 5 high-end restaurants across Seattle and had exactly 0 personal life to show for it. "What else did she say?" Nate asked, taking a sip of his Americano. Perfect, as always. The cafe downstairs knew his order by heart. Marcus pulled out his phone and began reading, and I quote, "Tell my son that money isn't everything, and if he doesn't stop hiding behind spreadsheets and actually talk to a woman who isn't serving him food, I'm going to set him up with Martha Henderson's daughter again." Nate nearly choked on his coffee. Not Martha Henderson's daughter. Please, God, no. "Hey, I met her at your Christmas party last year. She seemed nice. She spent 45 minutes explaining her cryptocurrency portfolio. Marcus, she brought charts to a Christmas party." They both laughed, but Marcus's expression quickly turned serious. He leaned forward, setting his coffee on the mahogany desk. "Look, man, I didn't just come up here to deliver messages from your mother. We need to talk about the Emerald." The Emerald was Nate's flagship restaurant, located just blocks from Pike Place Market in the heart of downtown Seattle. It was his first, his pride, and lately, his biggest headache. "The staff turnover?" Nate guessed. "Worse. I've been getting reports, complaints really, from the management team. They say you're too disconnected, that you don't understand what it's like on the floor anymore. That kid who quit last week, Tommy Rodriguez, he told the manager that the owner doesn't care about us little people." The words hit Nate harder than he expected. He set down his cup carefully, his jaw tightening. "I built this business from nothing. I worked every position there is. I know exactly what it's like." "You knew what it was like 10 years ago," Marcus corrected gently. "So when was the last time you actually worked a shift? Not visiting for an inspection or glad-handing VIPs in the private dining room, but really worked." Nate wanted to argue, but Marcus was right. He had climbed so high that he had forgotten what the view looked like from the ground floor. "So what do you suggest?" Nate asked. "A team-building retreat? Motivational speakers?" Marcus grinned, and Nate immediately knew he wasn't going to like what came next. "I suggest you go undercover." "You're joking." "I'm completely serious. Take 2 weeks, work as a waiter at the Emerald. Use a fake name, dress down, and actually experience what your employees experience every day. It worked for that CEO on that show. What was it called?" "Undercover, boss." "Marcus, that's a television show, reality TV, scripted drama." "Is it, though?" "Come on, Nate. When was the last time you did something spontaneous? Something that wasn't calculated on a spreadsheet or discussed in a board meeting?" Nate stood and walked to the window, looking down at the ant-like people hurrying along the rain-slicked streets. Somewhere down there was the Emerald, his first baby, apparently thinking he didn't care. The idea was absurd. He was Nathaniel Crawford, for crying out loud. He had been featured in Seattle Business Magazine. He had an MBA from the University of Washington. He drove a Tesla and wore custom-tailored suits. But Marcus was right about one thing. He couldn't remember the last time he had done something that scared him. 2 weeks, he said finally, still facing the window. 2 weeks, Marcus confirmed. "And no one can know. Not the managers, not the staff. Just you. I'll handle everything from up here. You just focus on not getting fired for being a terrible waiter." Nate turned around, giving his friend a sardonic smile. "I was Employee of the Month 3 times when I worked at my mother's restaurant." "Yeah, in 2010. Times change, old man. Can you even remember how to use the POS system? Point-of-sale systems are intuitive." Famous last words. 3 days later, Nathaniel Crawford stood in front of his bathroom mirror, barely recognizing himself. Gone was the precisely trimmed beard, replaced by artful stubble. He had swapped his Rolex for a cheap digital watch from Target. His hair, usually styled with expensive product, was simply combed back. He wore jeans, actual Levi's from a department store, and a plain grey Henley. He looked normal, unremarkable, exactly like someone who might serve tables at a downtown restaurant. His phone buzzed. "Marcus, don't forget, you're Nathan West now, recently moved from Spokane. No fancy vocabulary, no references to your real life. And for the love of God, don't try to reorganize their inventory system on your first day." Nathan smiled. This was either going to be the best idea he had ever had, or the most embarrassing mistake of his life. He grabbed his keys to his old Honda Civic, pulled from storage, and headed out. The rain had stopped, and a rare break in the clouds revealed Mount Rainier looming in the distance, majestic and eternal. Seattle mornings like this reminded him why he had built his empire here. As he drove toward Pike Place Market, nerves fluttered in his stomach, an unfamiliar sensation. He was about to walk into his own restaurant as a stranger, about to meet his employees as an equal rather than a boss. He had no idea that in approximately 45 minutes he would meet a woman with auburn hair, sharp green eyes, and a tongue even sharper than her wit. He had no idea that EMMA Sullivan would change everything. But for now, Nathan West parked his Honda in a public lot, paid the outrageous Seattle parking fee, and walked through the early morning mist toward the Emerald, ready to learn what his employees really thought of him. This was going to be interesting. The Emerald looked different from the employee entrance. Nathan had walked through the front doors countless times, greeted by hostesses with practiced smiles and the soft ambiance of his carefully curated playlist. But the back alley entrance, wedged between a dumpster that smelled like yesterday's seafood and a loading dock, was a different world entirely. He pressed the intercom button. A crackling voice answered, "Yeah? Hi, I'm Nathan West. It's my first day." The door buzzed open with a sound like an angry wasp. Nathan stepped into a narrow hallway with fluorescent lighting that flickered intermittently. The walls were painted industrial beige, and someone had taped a handwritten sign that read, "If you don't clock in, you don't get paid. No exceptions." Management. His management. He made a mental note. "You the new guy?" Nathan turned to find a young man, maybe 22, with a name tag that read Kyle. He had the exhausted look of someone who had closed the night before and was now working the morning shift. "That's me. Nathan West." Kyle looked him up and down with barely concealed skepticism. "You ever worked in a restaurant before?" Nathan thought of his years at his mother's place, the countless shifts, the burned hands and aching feet. "Yeah. A while ago, though. Family place back in Spokane." "Spokane, huh? Well, welcome to the big city." Kyle's tone suggested Seattle was the center of the universe, and Spokane was somewhere people went to retire or disappear. "Come on, Sandra will get you set up." Sandra Martinez was the floor manager, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. She sat in a cramped office barely larger than a closet, surrounded by schedules, vendor invoices, and a half-eaten bagel from the Pike Place Market. "Nathan West?" She consulted a clipboard. "Marcus sent your paperwork over, says you're experienced but rusty." "That's fair," Nathan said, appreciating Marcus's cover story. "We'll start you on lunch shift. Weekdays. Trial period is 2 weeks. You'll shadow Emma today. She's been here 3 years. If she says you're good, you're good. If she says you're hopeless, you're out." Clear. Crystal. Sandra's expression softened slightly. "Look, I know the Emerald seems fancy from the dining room, but back here we're a family. We work hard, we've got each other's backs, and we don't tolerate drama or laziness. You good with that?" Nathan felt a strange lump in his throat. This was his restaurant, and he was being told the values he thought he had instilled. But hearing it from Sandra, seeing the fierce pride in her eyes, made it real in a way board meetings never had. I'm good with that. Excellent. Emma should be here any minute. She's always exactly on time. Not early, not late, exactly on time. You could set your watch by her. As if summoned by fate, the door opened, and Nathan's carefully planned world tilted on its axis. Emma Sullivan burst into the office like a force of nature, her auburn hair escaping from a messy bun, her green eyes bright despite the early hour. She wore the standard emerald uniform, black pants and a white button-down, but somehow made it look effortlessly stylish with rolled-up sleeves and a vintage watch. Sorry, Sandra, I know I'm cutting it close. The bus from Capitol Hill was delayed because some guy tried to bring his emotional support peacock on board. I'm not making this up. There was a peacock on the number 10 bus, Peak Seattle, right? She finally noticed Nathan and stopped mid-sentence, giving him a quick, assessing look that made him feel oddly exposed. You must be the new guy. Nathan, right? She extended her hand. Emma Sullivan. Fair warning, I talk a lot. I have strong opinions about proper coffee brewing temperatures, and I will judge you if you put ketchup on a $70 steak. Nathan shook her hand, noticing she had a firm grip and calluses that spoke of hard work. Noted. No ketchup on expensive meat. He's all yours, Emma, Sandra said, waving them out. Try not to scare him off on day one. No promises, Emma called back. As they walked toward the locker room, Emma kept up a running commentary. So Spokane, huh? What brings you to the Emerald City? And please don't say you're trying to find yourself, or you're an aspiring musician. We have enough of those. Nathan had to suppress a smile. In his real life, people measured their words around him, careful and deferential. Emma clearly had no such filter. Just needed a change. New city, new start. Mysterious. I like it. Running from something or running toward something. Is there a difference? She stopped and looked at him with genuine interest. Wow. Philosophy before lunch service. You're either really deep or really pretentious. I haven't decided which yet. Can I be both? Oh, I like you already. Come on, mystery man. Let me show you where we keep the linens and try to remember. The customer is always right, except when they're completely wrong, which is about 70% of the time. The next 3 hours were a blur of information. Emma showed him the POS system, which was in fact not as intuitive as he had claimed, the table numbering system, the kitchen dynamics, and the unwritten rules that kept the restaurant running smoothly. Chef Ricardo is a genius, but never, and I mean never, suggest modifications to his salmon dish. He once made a grown man cry for asking for extra lemon. Noted. Tommy on the bar makes the best old-fashioned in Seattle, but he's going through a divorce, so don't mention marriage, weddings, or romantic comedies. Oddly specific. Trust me. And see that table by the window? Table 12. That's the worst station in the house. Everyone wants it because of the Elliott Bay view, but the acoustics make it impossible for customers to hear you, and the kitchen door hits you every time someone comes through. We call it the chaos table. Nathan filed away every detail. This was exactly the kind of operational knowledge he needed. The Emerald looked perfect from his penthouse office, but down here, in the trenches, there were a dozen small inefficiencies he had never noticed. You're quiet, Emma observed, as they folded napkins into the restaurant's signature fan shape. Most new people either talk too much because they're nervous or ask a million questions. You're just absorbing. Is that bad? It's interesting. She studied him again with those sharp green eyes. You're different. Can't quite figure you out yet. Nathan's heart rate picked up. Different how? You stand differently. You watch things. And your hands, she gestured to where he was folding napkins with precise, practiced movements. You fold like someone who's done this 1,000 times, but you claim you're rusty. He was saved from answering by Kyle's head popping through the door. Emma, your favorite customer just walked in. Emma groaned dramatically. No, not on training day. The universe hates me. Who? Nathan asked. Mr. Fitzgerald. Comes in every Tuesday. Orders the most complicated modifications known to mankind. Tips exactly 15% to the penny, and once sent back a salad because the leaves were pointing the wrong direction. I swear I'm not making this up. The leaves were pointing the wrong direction. His words, not mine. Come on, Nathan. Baptism by fire. Let's see if you survive your first table. As they walked onto the floor, Nathan felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine nervousness mixed with excitement. Emma moved through the restaurant with easy confidence, greeting regulars by name, laughing with the busboys, somehow making the controlled chaos look like a choreographed dance. She was magnetic, authentic, real in a way that no one in his usual social circles ever was. "You coming, mystery man?" Emma called back. "Right behind you," Nathan said, and meant it in more ways than one. He had come here to learn about his business. He had not expected to be completely captivated by a sharp-tongued, peacock storytelling, coffee-obsessed waitress with eyes that seemed to see right through his carefully constructed disguise. This was definitely going to be interesting. 2 weeks into his undercover operation, Nathan had learned 3 important truths. First, his feet could hurt in ways he had completely forgotten. Second, the POS system he had approved was indeed terrible, and he was adding "fire the software vendor" to his mental list. Third, and most importantly, EMMA Sullivan was going to be a problem. Not because she was difficult, quite the opposite. She was funny, hard-working, and had somehow memorized the preferences of what seemed like every regular customer in downtown Seattle. The problem was that Nathan couldn't stop thinking about her. Earth to mystery man. Emma waved a hand in front of his face. "You're staring at the espresso machine again. If you love it that much, just propose already." They were in the small staff break room, a cramped space with mismatched chairs, a microwave that only worked on high, and a window that overlooked the alley. It was their 30-minute break between lunch and dinner service, a sacred time when the staff actually got to sit down. "Sorry," Nathan said, pulling his attention back. "Just thinking." Dangerous hobby. Emma bit into her sandwich, something from the deli down at Pike Place Market. She had told him on day 3 that she refused to eat the staff meal because, "I spend 8 hours smelling this food. I need something different." "Can I ask you something?" Nathan ventured. "You're going to anyway, so sure. Why do you work here?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "That's a weird question. Why does anyone work anywhere? Money, to survive, to fund my caffeine addiction. No, I mean..." Nathan struggled to phrase it without revealing himself. "You're smart, really smart. You quoted Hemingway the other day to a customer. You clearly care about literature and coffee culture and, I don't know. This seems like it's not your dream job." Emma set down her sandwich and studied him with that unnerving intensity she sometimes had. "You know what's funny? Most people don't ask that. They just assume waitress equals no ambition." "I didn't mean..." "Relax, mystery man. I'm not offended." She took a sip of her coffee, from a local roaster on Capitol Hill, never the corporate chains. "I'm working on my master's degree, English Literature at University of Washington, specializing in 20th century American authors, Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Steinbeck, the whole tragic genius club." "That's amazing." "It's expensive," Emma corrected. "Hence the waitressing. I work here for lunch and dinner, then I do overnight inventory at a bookstore in Fremont 3 nights a week. Between that and student loans, I'm basically a professional exhausted person." Nathan felt something tighten in his chest. He owned 5 restaurants, drove a Tesla he barely used, and had more money than he could spend in a lifetime. Emma worked 2 jobs to pursue her education, and here she was making jokes and treating everyone with kindness despite being exhausted. "What about you?" Emma asked, turning the tables. "What's the long-term plan? Professional waiter isn't usually the end game." Nathan had prepared for this question, but somehow lying to Emma felt wrong. "Still figuring it out. I used to think I knew exactly what I wanted. Now I'm not so sure." That's refreshingly honest. Most guys I meet have their whole life mapped out like a GPS route. Turn left at 30 for marriage, turn right at 35 for kids, arrive at suburban house with white picket fence. "You don't want that." "I didn't say that." Emma's expression softened. "I just want to make sure that when I get there, it's because I chose it, not because it's what I'm supposed to want. You know?" Nathan did know. He had spent his entire adult life building what he was supposed to want: success, wealth, recognition. But sitting in this cramped break room with Emma, eating simple food and having real conversations, he felt more alive than he had in years. "Can I tell you something crazy?" Emma said suddenly. "Please do." "I think the owner of this place is kind of a jerk." Nathan nearly choked on his coffee. "What?" "Nathaniel Crawford. Have you seen his picture in the office? He looks so, I don't know, removed. Like someone who's never had to worry about making rent or choosing between textbooks and groceries. Sandra says he barely ever comes down here, just sends emails about profit margins and efficiency. Every word was a knife. Nathan carefully kept his expression neutral. You've never met him? God, no. He's like Willy Wonka, mysterious factory owner who never actually appears. Except Wonka at least gave out chocolate. This guy just takes our suggestions and ignores them. Emma leaned forward conspiratorially. Want to hear the worst part? Nathan wasn't sure he did, but he nodded anyway. 6 months ago, I wrote this whole proposal about improving the staff break area. Better chairs, maybe a decent coffee maker since we work in a restaurant, some natural light. I spent hours on it. Sandra said she'd pass it up the chain. You know what happened? What? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not even a thanks, but no thanks. Just silence. Like we're not even worth a response. Nathan felt sick. He vaguely remembered seeing something about break room improvements, but it had gotten lost in a flood of emails about the Bellevue expansion. He had been so focused on growth that he had ignored the people who made that growth possible. Maybe he didn't see it, Nathan offered weakly. Or maybe he doesn't care. Emma shrugged, but he could see the disappointment in her eyes. Sorry, I shouldn't dump this on you on your second week. It's just, I love this job, you know. I love the customers, the team, even Mr. Fitzgerald and his directionally challenged salad leaves. I just wish the person at the top appreciated what we do down here. The irony was crushing. Nathan had come here to learn what his employees thought of him, and now he knew. He was a removed, uncaring jerk who didn't even respond to simple requests. For what it's worth, Nathan said quietly, I think your proposal was probably really good. And I think the owner is missing out on knowing someone as incredible as you. Emma blinked, and a faint blush colored her cheeks. Did you just compliment me, mystery man? I think I did. Careful. Keep that up and I might start to like you. Would that be so terrible? The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. Emma held his gaze, and Nathan saw the moment she felt it too. That pull, that connection, that terrifying and exhilarating possibility. Emma! Nathan! Break's over! Kyle's voice shattered the moment. We've got a party of 12 just walked in. Emma jumped up, suddenly businesslike. Duty calls. Come on, let's show these people why the emerald is worth their ridiculously inflated prices. As they walked back onto the floor, Emma paused and touched his arm. Hey, Nathan. Yeah? Thanks for asking. About my dreams and stuff. Most people don't. Most people are idiots. She laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made her whole face light up. See? I knew I'd like you. That night, after his shift ended and he was safely back in his penthouse, Nathan sat at his desk with his laptop open. He pulled up the old email with Emma's proposal about the break room improvements. She had been thorough, thoughtful. She had researched costs, found ergonomic chairs on sale, even suggested a coffee maker from a local Seattle roaster that would support small business while improving staff morale. He had ignored it. Not maliciously, just carelessly in the way busy people ignore things that don't seem urgent. Nathan opened a new email to Marcus. Approve whatever EMMA SULLIVAN requested for the break room. Budget is unlimited. Also, I need to talk to you about some operational changes. Important ones. Then he opened his personal banking app and set up an anonymous scholarship fund. Full tuition for one graduate student in English literature at University of Washington. The recipient would be chosen based on merit and financial need. He couldn't tell Emma who he really was. Not yet. Not until he figured out how to fix the mess he had made. But he could start making things right. One coffee maker at a time. The new break room chairs arrived on a Wednesday morning. Nathan watched from the kitchen doorway as Emma ran her hand over the ergonomic cushioning, her expression a mixture of shock and delight. Sandra stood beside her, holding a memo that had apparently come from upper management. I don't believe it, Emma breathed. They actually listened. And look at this. Kyle pointed to the corner where a brand new espresso machine gleamed. Not just any machine, but a commercial-grade beauty from Cafe Umbria, a local Seattle roaster. This thing is nicer than what we have on the floor. There's a note, Sandra said, reading from the memo. It says, thank you for your dedication and service. Your comfort and well-being matter. Consider this a first step toward improvements. It's signed by Mr. Crawford himself. Nathan's heart hammered. He had written that note at 3 in the morning, rewriting it a dozen times to strike the right tone. Emma sank into one of the new chairs, and for a moment her tough exterior cracked. Her eyes glistened. Maybe I was wrong about him. Maybe he's finally paying attention, Sandra said softly, exchanging a meaningful look with Emma. Nathan retreated before anyone could see the emotion on his own face. He had never realized how much a simple gesture could mean. In his boardroom world, spending $10,000 was a rounding error. Down here it was validation, recognition, proof that someone cared. "Hey, mystery man." He turned to find Emma standing behind him, that familiar teasing smile back in place, though her eyes were still a bit red. "Those new chairs look comfortable," Nathan managed. "They're perfect." She paused, then impulsively grabbed his hand. "Come on, I want to show you something. We've got 2 hours before dinner service." "Show me what?" "It's a surprise." "You trust me?" Nathan looked at their joined hands, at her expectant face, and realized he would probably follow Emma Sullivan anywhere. Completely. 20 minutes later, they were standing at Kerry Park on Queen Anne Hill, one of Seattle's hidden gems. The viewpoint offered a breathtaking panorama, the Space Needle in the foreground, downtown's glittering skyscrapers, Elliott Bay stretching toward the Olympic Mountains, and on this rare clear day, Mount Rainier dominating the southern horizon like a sleeping giant. "Wow," Nathan said, and meant it. He had lived in Seattle for over a decade and had never come here. "Right." Emma leaned against the railing. "This is my thinking spot. When the restaurant gets crazy or school gets overwhelming, or I just need to remember why I'm doing all of this, I come here. It reminds me that there's something bigger than my problems. It's perfect. I've never brought anyone here before," Emma admitted, not looking at him. "Not even my ex-boyfriend, and we dated for 2 years. Why me? Because you see things, really see them, not just look at them." She finally turned to face him. "Most people go through life like they're checking boxes. You notice the details, the way Chef Ricardo plates his dishes, how Sandra always makes sure the new servers eat before their first shift. You're present, Nathan. That's rare." The sound of his fake name on her lips was both sweet and painful. He was lying to her with every breath, and she was offering him genuine honesty. "Can I tell you something?" Nathan said, the words escaping before he could stop them. "Always." "I'm not who you think I am." Emma's expression became guarded. "Are you married? A criminal? Wait, are you in witness protection? Because that would actually be kind of cool." Despite everything, Nathan laughed. "No, nothing like that. My life is complicated. More complicated than I've let on." "Everyone's life is complicated, mystery man. The question is whether you're a good person underneath the complications." "I'm trying to be." "Then that's enough for me." She shivered slightly in the November breeze, and without thinking, Nathan shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Such a gentleman," she teased, but her voice was softer. "You know what's funny? When you first started, I thought you might be some rich kid slumming it, playing at being a server before running back to Daddy's law firm." Nathan's stomach dropped. "What changed your mind? You work too hard, you actually care about getting orders right, and you split your tips with the busboys even though you don't have to." She pulled his jacket tighter. "Plus, rich kids don't have calluses like yours. You've worked hard for a long time, I can tell." She was right, but not in the way she thought. Nathan had calluses from his early days in restaurants, but also from years of golf and tennis at his country club. His hands told 2 different stories. "Emma, Don't." She placed a finger on his lips. "Whatever you're about to confess, save it. Right now, in this moment, you're just Nathan, and I'm just Emma, and we're watching the sunset over the most beautiful city in the world. Can we just have this?" Nathan nodded, not trusting his voice. They stood in comfortable silence as the sky transformed from blue to pink to purple. Ferry boats crawled across Elliott Bay like lazy water bugs. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries mixing with the distant sounds of the city. "I have a confession, too," Emma said finally. "Yeah? I might be developing feelings for you, which is terrible timing because I swore off dating until after I finished my degree. And you're a co-worker, which is always complicated, and I barely know you, but..." She trailed off, biting her lip. "But?" Nathan prompted, his heart racing. "But you make me laugh. And you listen when I talk about Hemingway and nobody else cares. And when you look at me, I feel like I'm the only person in the room." She laughed self-consciously. "God, I sound like a Hallmark card." "You sound perfect." "Nathan," he kissed her. It was impulsive and probably a terrible idea, but he couldn't help himself. Emma made a small sound of surprise, then melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma's eyes were wide. "Well," she said shakily, "that was a mistake," Nathan offered, terrified. "I was going to say worth waiting for, but sure, let's go with mistake if you prefer." They both laughed, and the tension broke. Emma laced her fingers through his, and they stood together watching the city lights blink on one by one. "This doesn't change anything at work," Emma said firmly. "We're professionals." "Absolutely. And you still have to deal with Mr. Fitzgerald's salad complaints. Wouldn't dream of passing that honor to someone else. And if this goes south, we're adults about it." "Deal." Emma squeezed his hand. "Okay. Then let's see where this goes, mystery man." Nathan squeezed back, feeling like the world's biggest fraud and the luckiest man alive all at once. He was falling for EMMA SULLIVAN, brilliant, funny, hard-working Emma who thought he was just a regular guy trying to make rent. What would she say when she learned the truth? That the disconnected jerk she had criticized was the man holding her hand. That Nathan West didn't exist, and Nathaniel Crawford had been lying to her from the moment they met. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Marcus with some crisis that needed the real Nathaniel Crawford. But Nathan ignored it. For once, the spreadsheets and board meetings could wait. Right now, he was just a man standing on a hill with an incredible woman, watching the stars appear over Seattle. It was perfect. It was a lie, and it couldn't last forever. But for tonight, Nathan let himself believe in the illusion. Tomorrow, he would figure out how to make it real. Tomorrow, he would find a way to tell Emma the truth without losing her. Tomorrow. For 3 weeks, Nathan lived in 2 worlds. By day, he was Nathan West, server extraordinaire, Emma's boyfriend, though they hadn't made it official, and a regular guy who split pitchers of beer with Kyle after closing shifts at a dive bar in Ballard. By night, he was Nathaniel Crawford, CEO, who approved budgets, negotiated leases, and tried to figure out how to tell the woman he was falling in love with that he had been lying to her since the day they met. It was Marcus who finally forced his hand. "How you have to tell her," his friend said over the phone. It was 6 in the morning and Nathan was getting ready for the breakfast shift, something Nathan West did, but Nathaniel Crawford never had. "I know." "When?" "Soon." "Nate, the Seattle Business Journal is doing a feature on you next month. They want photos at the Emerald. You think Emma won't notice when her mysterious boyfriend turns out to be the owner she thinks is a jerk?" Nathan rubbed his face tiredly. "I'll tell her this weekend. I'll take her somewhere nice, explain everything." "Explain what exactly?" "Hey, remember when I pretended to be someone else for over a month? Surprise." "You're not helping." "I'm being realistic. Look, man, I love you, but this was a terrible idea from the start. You should have told her after the first week." Marcus was right. Nathan had known it every time Emma kissed him, every time she shared her dreams, every time she laughed at his jokes and looked at him like he was someone special, not because of his money or status, but because of who he was. Except she didn't know who he was. Not really. "This weekend," Nathan promised, "I'll tell her everything." But the universe had other plans. It was a Friday night, and the Emerald was packed. Every table full, the bar 3 deep with customers waiting for seats, the kitchen running at maximum capacity. Emma and Nathan moved through the controlled chaos like a well-oiled machine, finishing each other's sentences, covering each other's tables. "Table 8 needs more bread," Emma called. "On it!" Nathan grabbed a basket, delivered it with a smile, cleared table 12 in one smooth motion, and was back to help Emma carry a tray of entrees. "So you two are disgustingly efficient," Kyle muttered as they passed. Emma winked at Nathan. "We're a team." Then disaster walked through the door. "Nate, buddy." Nathan's blood turned to ice. He knew that voice. Harrison Montgomery, old friend from business school, restaurant investor, and someone who absolutely knew Nathaniel Crawford by sight. Harrison stood at the host stand with a group of people in expensive suits, clearly out for a business dinner. He was scanning the restaurant, and his eyes landed directly on Nathan. "Nate Crawford, I didn't know you were working the floor tonight," Harrison boomed across the restaurant. "That's some serious dedication to customer service." The entire restaurant went quiet. Emma, standing right beside Nathan with a tray of drinks, turned to look at him. "Crawford?" she said slowly. Nathan's mouth went dry. "Emma, I can explain. You told me your last name was West." Her voice was very calm, very controlled, and Nathan knew that was worse than anger. "Miss, can we get seated?" Harrison called out, oblivious to the bomb he had just dropped. "Nate, you should join us. We can talk about the Bellevue expansion." Sandra appeared, her face confused. "Nathan, what's going on? Do you know these people?" Everything happened at once. Emma's eyes went wide with recognition and betrayal. She looked at Sandra, at Nathan, at Harrison, and back again. "Nathan West," she said, each word like glass. "Nathaniel Crawford, oh my God." She shoved the tray of drinks into Kyle's hands and walked straight out the back door. Nathan moved to follow, but Sandra grabbed his arm. "What is going on?" she demanded. Harrison, finally reading the room, went pale. Did I miss something?" Nathan pulled away from Sandra and ran after Emma. He burst into the alley to find her standing by the dumpster, arms wrapped around herself, shaking. "Emma, don't," she held up a hand. "Don't you dare Emma me. You're him, you're the owner, the disconnected jerk who ignores his staff, the person I criticized to your face. I know. You let me tell you all my problems. I told you about working 2 jobs, about struggling to pay for school, and all this time you were, what? Slumming it? Playing pretend? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Nathaniel?" She spat his real name like poison. "Explain to me how lying to everyone, lying to me, was somehow noble or necessary. I came here because I needed to understand what my employees were experiencing. Marcus told me I was disconnected, and he was right. I wanted to learn, to be better. By lying, by making me fall in." She stopped, biting back the words, but they hung in the air between them anyway. Nathan's heart shattered. "Emma, please. Everything I felt, everything between us, that was real. I swear to you, how can I believe anything you say?" Tears streamed down her face now. "You watched me worry about money. You saw me exhausted from working 2 jobs, and all this time you could have helped. You have 5 restaurants, for God's sake. You could have given me more hours, better pay, mentioned the scholarship you mysteriously set up. You know about that? I'm not an idiot, Nathan, or Nathaniel, or whoever the hell you are." She laughed bitterly. "Her scholarship appears out of nowhere right after I tell you about my degree. The break room gets renovated right after I complain about it to you. I thought it was coincidence. I thought I was being paranoid. But it was you. All of it was you, pulling strings behind my back. I was trying to help. I don't need your charity. I need honesty. I need someone who respects me enough to tell me the truth." Her voice broke. "I need someone who sees me as an equal, not a project to fix or a case study in employee satisfaction." Nathan reached for her, but she stepped back. "Did you laugh about it?" Emma asked quietly. "Up in your penthouse with your CFO friend? Look at the poor waitress who doesn't know she's dating her boss. How amusing." "Emma, no. God, no, I never—" His own voice cracked. "You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. Being with you, being Nathan instead of Nathaniel. It was the first time I felt like a real person instead of just a CEO. You made me remember why I loved this business in the first place. That's beautiful, really. But you know what? You got your experience. You learned what it's like to be a regular employee. Congratulations on your little sociological experiment." She wiped her eyes angrily. "But I'm not a lesson. I'm not a character in your redemption story. I'm a person, and you treated me like I was too stupid to deserve the truth. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair is you going back into your restaurant, because it is your restaurant, and dealing with the mess you made. Fair is me going home and crying into my discount wine because I was stupid enough to fall for someone who didn't even tell me his real name." She started walking toward the street. "Emma, please, let me drive you home. It's late. I'll take the bus. Just like I always do, because some of us don't have a Tesla waiting in a private parking garage. How did you—" "Kyle told me weeks ago that some tech CEO parks his Tesla in the loading zone sometimes. I defended you. I said maybe he had a good reason." She laughed without humor. "Turns out he did. He was pretending to be someone else. Nathan watched helplessly as Emma walked away, her shoulders squared, but her steps unsteady. Every instinct screamed to follow her, to fix this, to make her understand. But Sandra was in the doorway now, and Harrison was probably still in the dining room, and the restaurant was full of customers who needed to be served. The real world, his world, came crashing back, and it had never felt more empty. For 2 weeks, Nathan tried everything. He sent flowers to Emma's apartment in Capitol Hill. She donated them to a nursing home. He sent handwritten letters. They came back unopened. He showed up at the bookstore in Fremont where she worked nights, but her manager, a fierce woman with purple hair who looked like she could bench press a car, told him Emma would call the police if he didn't leave. Emma had quit the Emerald the night of the revelation. Sandra told him she had given proper notice by email, professional and cold, and had asked that her final paycheck be mailed. She was crying when she wrote it, Sandra had added quietly. I could tell by the typos. Emma never makes typos. Nathan threw himself into work, but everything reminded him of her. He couldn't walk into the Emerald without remembering her laugh, her commentary on difficult customers, the way she folded napkins while discussing Hemingway. You look terrible, Marcus observed one grey December morning. They were in Nathan's office, and the Space Needle was barely visible through the fog rolling off Elliott Bay. Thanks. I'm serious. When was the last time you slept? Or ate something that didn't come from a vending machine? I don't know. Tuesday. It's Thursday. Nathan rubbed his burning eyes. She won't talk to me, Marcus. I've tried everything. Have you tried the truth? I told her the truth, that's the problem. No, I mean the whole truth, not explanations or justifications. Just how you feel, what she means to you, why you fell in love with her. Nathan's head snapped up. I never said, please. You reorganized your entire business schedule around her shifts. You learned her coffee order from 3 different roasters. You quoted Steinbeck last week in a board meeting because she mentioned liking of mice and men. Marcus leaned forward. You're in love with her, Nate. The question is whether you're brave enough to tell her. That night, Nathan sat at his desk and wrote. Not an email, not a text. A real letter, handwritten on the good stationery his mother had given him years ago. He wrote about growing up in his mother's restaurant, washing dishes at 14, learning that hospitality was about making people feel seen and valued. He wrote about building his empire and somehow losing sight of those values along the way. He wrote about that first day, seeing Emma burst into Sandra's office with a story about a peacock on the bus and how her authenticity had struck him like lightning. He wrote about falling in love with her intelligence, her humor, her fierce independence and kind heart. He wrote about how she had made him want to be better, not richer or more successful, but actually better as a human being. And he wrote an apology, not for wanting to understand his employees better, but for lying, for not trusting her with the truth, for treating their relationship as something that could exist in a vacuum, separate from the reality of who he was. The letter was 6 pages long. Nathan read it 3 times, changed his mind about sending it twice, then finally sealed it in an envelope and wrote Emma's address with shaking hands. But before he could mail it, his phone rang. Sandra's name flashed on the screen. Nathaniel, we have a problem. His heart sank. What is it? Remember that investor who was sniffing around about buying the Emerald, Richard Thornton? Nathan's jaw clenched. Thornton was a corporate raider who bought beloved local restaurants, stripped them of character and turned them into soulless chains. What about him? He just made a formal offer, $2 million over market value, and he's threatening to open a competitor right across the street if you refuse, using all our signature dishes. Says he's already hired away 3 of our kitchen staff. It was a classic Thornton move, aggressive, ruthless, effective. Nathan could fight it legally, but the publicity would be terrible. The Emerald would survive, but the staff would suffer through months of uncertainty. Unless. An idea formed in Nathan's mind. It was risky, possibly stupid, and would require him to do the one thing he had always avoided, being publicly vulnerable. Sandra, I need you to do something for me, and I need you to trust me even though I know I haven't earned that trust back yet. 2 days later, Nathan stood on the small stage at the Emerald during the lunch rush. Every table was full, every employee was working, and Sandra had mysteriously invited the staff from all his other restaurants to attend a mandatory meeting. Emma stood in the back, arms crossed, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. Sandra had apparently told her that attendance wasn't optional if she wanted her recommendation letter for PhD programs. It was manipulative, and Nathan owed Sandra a massive Christmas bonus. "Thank you all for coming," Nathan began, his voice echoing through the suddenly quiet restaurant. "I'm Nathaniel Crawford, and I own the Emerald and 4 other restaurants in Seattle. But I'm guessing most of you know that by now." There were some uncomfortable chuckles. Emma's expression didn't change. "A few months ago, I came here in disguise. I told you my name was Nathan West, and I pretended to be a regular server because I wanted to understand what your lives were like. It was arrogant, it was dishonest, and it hurt people I care about." His eyes found Emma's. "It hurt someone I love." Emma's arms tightened, but something flickered in her expression. "I learned a lot during those weeks. I learned that the POS system we use is garbage." Scattered applause. "I learned that the staff parking is too far away and the break room was depressing." More applause. "I learned that Sandra Martinez is the backbone of this operation and deserves a 30% raise." Sandra's eyes widened as real cheers erupted. "But mostly I learned that I had lost touch with why I started this business in the first place. My mother taught me that restaurants aren't about the food or the ambience or the profit margins. They're about people, about creating moments of connection and joy, about treating everyone, staff and customers, with dignity and respect." Nathan pulled out a folder. "Richard Thornton has offered to buy the Emerald. It's a lot of money, more than any rational businessman would refuse." He set the folder down. "But I'm not selling, instead I'm restructuring. Effective immediately, 20% of the profits from all my restaurants will go into a profit-sharing pool for employees. Full health care for anyone working more than 20 hours a week. Tuition reimbursement for anyone pursuing higher education." The room erupted in shocked applause, but Nathan held up his hand. "I'm also establishing the EMMA SULLIVAN Scholarship Fund. Full tuition for graduate students in the humanities who work in the service industry. Because I met someone who opens books while folding napkins, who quotes Hemingway to customers, who works 2 jobs to chase her dreams. Someone who taught me that intelligence and ambition aren't limited by job titles." Emma's hand had moved to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. "Emma, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. I lied to you, and no amount of good intentions excuses that. But I need you to know, falling in love with you wasn't part of any plan. Getting to know you, learning from you, becoming a better person because of you, that was the realest thing I've ever experienced." He stepped down from the stage and walked toward her, aware that every eye in the restaurant was on them. "You told me you don't need charity. You're right. You don't need anything from me. You're brilliant and strong and capable of achieving every dream you have all by yourself." He stopped a few feet away, giving her space. "But I need you. I need your honesty, your humor, your ability to call me out when I'm being an idiot. I need your perspective and your kindness, and the way you make me want to be more than just a CEO." "Nathan," Emma whispered, "I love you, Emma Sullivan. Not because you're a project or an employee or a lesson learned. I love you because you're you. And if you give me another chance, I promise I will never lie to you again about anything, even if the truth makes me look bad." The restaurant was silent. Emma stood there, tears still falling, her expression a war between hurt and hope. "You really restructured your entire business model?" she asked finally. "Marcus has the paperwork, it's legally binding. Even if you never speak to me again, it's happening. That scholarship thing, did you really name it after me? First annual recipient will be announced next month. Sandra's on the selection committee. You gave Sandra a 30% raise? Should have been 40. She basically runs this place." Emma laughed, a watery, broken sound, and Nathan's heart soared. "You're still an idiot," she said, "I know. And you owe me about 1,000 apologies. I'll deliver them personally, daily, with coffee from that roaster you like on Capitol Hill. This doesn't fix everything. I know. We're going to have to rebuild trust. It's going to take time. I've got time, all the time in the world." Emma stepped forward, and Nathan held his breath. She reached up, grabbed his face in both hands, and kissed him. The restaurant erupted in cheers, but Nathan barely heard them. All he knew was Emma, her lips, her tears mixing with his, her fingers tangled in his hair. When they broke apart, she pressed her forehead to his. "You're lucky I'm a sucker for grand gestures," she murmured. "You're lucky I'm a quick learner. Oh, mystery man, you still have so much to learn. Teach me? Every day for the rest of our lives. But I'm keeping the scholarship thing. That's brilliant. Nathan laughed, the sound free and joyful in a way it hadn't been in weeks. Around them, the staff was applauding, and someone had started playing The Way You Look Tonight on the restaurant's sound system. Sandra appeared beside them, shaking her head with a grin. You two are worse than a telenovela. Now get back to work. We've got customers. Yes, ma'am, Nathan and Emma said in unison, then looked at each other and laughed. That evening, after the shift ended, they walked down to the waterfront. The winter air was crisp and clear, and the lights from the ferries twinkled across Elliott Bay like fallen stars. The iconic Pike Place Market sign glowed behind them, and somewhere in the distance a street musician played guitar. So what happens now? Emma asked, holding his hand as they strolled past the Olympic Sculpture Park. Now we figure it out together. No more secrets, no more lies. Just us navigating this complicated, messy, beautiful thing. I'm still mad at you, you know. I know. And I'm going to bring this up in arguments for years. I'm counting on it. And you have to meet my parents. Fair warning, my dad is very protective, and my mum will interrogate you about your intentions. I look forward to it. Emma stopped walking and turned to face him, the Space Needle rising into the night sky behind her like a beacon. I love you too, by the way. I should have said it back in front of everyone, but I was processing. I love you, Nathaniel Crawford, even though you're sometimes an idiot. Especially because I'm sometimes an idiot. Let's not get carried away. They kissed again, softer this time, unhurried. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely way, in the heart of Seattle, surrounded by the smells of coffee and salt water and possibility. Hey, Nathan. Yeah? Tomorrow, I want you to work a real shift with me. Not as the owner checking in, as my partner, deal? Deal, but I should warn you, I'm terrible with Mr. Fitzgerald's salad orders. Nobody's perfect, mystery man. That's what makes it interesting. Hand in hand, they walked into the Seattle night, ready to write the next chapter of their story. Together, honestly, and with all the messy, beautiful complications that came with real love. The end. Epilogue 1 year later. Emma stood on the stage at University of Washington's graduation ceremony, her master's degree in hand, and scanned the crowd until she found him. Nathan, Nathaniel, her boyfriend, her partner, her favorite pain in the neck, sat between Marcus and Sandra, cheering louder than anyone else. The EMMA SULLIVAN Scholarship had awarded its first 10 recipients. The Emerald had been voted Best Restaurant Culture in Seattle by the service industry workers themselves. And somehow, against all odds, they had made it work. There would be more challenges ahead. Emma was starting her PhD program in the fall, and Nathan was opening a 6th restaurant, this one with a profit-sharing model from day one. They would argue about work-life balance. They would struggle with their different backgrounds. They would have to navigate the strange world, where she was both his girlfriend and, technically, still employed by his company, though she had transferred to the Bellevue location to avoid conflicts. But they would do it together. As Emma walked off the stage, degree in hand and future wide open, she caught Nathan's eye and smiled. He mouthed, "I love you," across the crowd. She mouthed it back. And somewhere in Seattle, in a restaurant near Pike Place Market, servers and cooks and busboys and hostesses worked together, shared profits, pursued dreams, and proved that sometimes the best stories start with a lie, but end with truth. The end, for real this time.